Hello and welcome to this week's Liverpool.com podcast. Myself, Matt Addison and Michael Plant. We're going to have a chat about pre-season. We were both at Anfield on Monday as Liverpool played Athletic Club, not once but twice, and there was plenty of things for us to learn in that game as well as in the Asia Tour and one or two of the other fixtures that we've seen Liverpool play this summer as well. Before we get into today's episode, though, a word to our sponsors, NordVPN. They've got a new app available for download, which allows you reliable and affordable internet access on your trips abroad. It's called Saily, and it's a new eSIM service app, and it's brought to you by, as I say, NordVPN. You can choose from several affordable eSIM data plans in over 200 destinations. With a Saily eSIM, you'll always have a connection when you need one. You can download Saily in your app store and use our code BLOODRED at the checkout to get an exclusive 15% off your first purchase. For more info, please go to the episode description box below, or you can visit saily.com/bloodred. Michael, let's get into it then. Pre-season has come to a close, though I suspect there's a few people who might count the Community Shield as a bit of an extension of that before the main event against Bournemouth a week on Friday now, isn't it? It's just around the corner, the new season. But I suppose let's just start with some general thoughts on pre-season. We'll get to specifics, winners and losers, individual players across the course of the next half an hour or so. But it's been an interesting summer, hasn't it, for Liverpool? It's certainly been a lot busier than usual. I know it's your first summer covering Liverpool, but don't expect it to be like this every year.
Yeah. I'm expecting 78 signings next summer for sure. Listen, it's been a really, in terms of transfers, there's certainly been lots going on. And a really interesting summer in that regard. I think it's really interesting that a squad that was so far ahead of everyone last season has not quite been ripped up, but certainly there've been a lot of changes to it. And, for instance, last night in the second game at Anfield, which was, I think, a stronger 11, there was 5 new arrivals, including Mamdashvili starting. Now, look, I think a couple of those, it was a little bit chance that there happened to just be 5, but it's interesting. It's just going to be a new look Liverpool team this season. And in terms of transfers, it's been obviously a really interesting summer. It's obviously been a very sad and tragic summer in other senses with Diogo Jota, and we keep continuing to cover the tributes that continue to come his way. Even at Anfield on Monday night, there was more from the club as well. So it's obviously been set against a very sad backdrop that has framed the summer. But I think that now that the season is approaching, I think everyone will be, looking forward to the games getting back underway with that very much at the forefront of their minds still.
Yeah, it's been, as you say, a busy summer in a variety of ways. It's gone very, very quickly. It doesn't feel like that long since the end of last summer, last season, I should say. I suspect that is because of how much has gone on. And for some clubs, there's been a lot less of a summer. Liverpool have had, it pretty good, really, in terms of having a full pre-season, having as much time as possible to prepare themselves, and obviously have integrated a few of those new players as well. We are going to talk about a few of the exciting signings. I'm sure people will want to hear what we've got to say on the likes of Florian Wirtz and Hugo Ekitike, and possibly one or two others who might come in before September the 1st as well. But I think it's fair to say that the real standout of pre-season, really compared to expectations at the start, has to be Rio Ngumoha. Mm-hmm. A brilliant goal for him just a couple of minutes into the game on Monday night. But yeah, he's been very, very impressive. And I think he's been so impressive that even at 16 years of age, there's a genuine question to be asked now of where he fits into Arne Slot's plan in the next few months.
Yeah, and you and I were, I'm just trying to fix my lighting here, it's just gone very dark. But you and I were discussing last night at the match, and it almost feels like at the start of pre-season, the question was, well, maybe could he push in and have a bit of a role this season to play? But now I think we're at the stage, it's only been 6 pre-season games, and it feels very difficult to imagine him not having some sort of role in around the first team this season. I don't think anyone expects him to be starting in the side, but could he come on late on in Premier League games and have an impact off the bench against tired defenders? And the right back for Bilbao, whose name has just escaped me, I had a little Google of him afterwards, and he's 29, been around the block, played in the Liga for a long time. I think Ngumoha just, had him tied up in knots, didn't he? Against Bilbao. So he was brilliant in that game. Obviously very good against Preston. Had some good moments against Yokohama as well. So, listen, he has been absolutely the standout player of the summer, certainly in terms of expectations. Yeah, and I am so interested to see, particularly in a summer when Luis Diaz has moved on and we expect Federico Chiesa to move on as well. What role is he going to have to play this season? I think it's a really fascinating question.
Yeah, I mean, I have to say, I've been a big fan of him. I've seen quite a lot of him for Liverpool's academy sides. I know people at Chelsea were absolutely distraught, really, that they'd lost such a big talent. But I didn't expect at all for him to be as good as what he has been. I suppose that's, no huge shock given the age that he is. He doesn't turn 17 until the end of this month. But I think you're right to say that he could come off the bench for 15 or 20 minutes in a Premier League game. That's absolutely reasonable. I think we saw a little bit of him in Arne Slot's first summer in pre-season where he did look like a kid. I don't think he does now. I think he's bulked up a bit. He's clearly, his dribbling, his sort of stature with the ball, without the ball, he just looks like a senior professional at this point. And, when you've got that much skill and you combine it with the physical qualities that he's got, obviously you've got to be careful. It's still early in his career, and there's still, a number of steps for him to take before he's a regular in this Liverpool team, or before he's somebody that Arne Slot is really going to hang his hat on and rely on across the course of a 10-game spell or whatever it might be. But it doesn't have to be that. Liverpool have got Cody Gakpo on that left-hand side, and I think he's the perfect option, really, isn't he? I think, I've written this morning around, assuming that Liverpool can get one more attacker in, Alexander Isak being the obvious name. If you've got him, Ekitike, Wirtz, Salah, Gakpo, that's 5. And then a young player like Rio Ngumoha, that feels about the right balance to go into next season. I know that is me putting Florian Wirtz as an attacker rather than a midfielder, which some people might argue with, but it feels about right to me, I think, at this point.
Yeah, I mean, we obviously spoke with this last week. I mean, I certainly think, I would class Wirtz a midfielder. And I think, I know why you've included him as an attacker, because he can definitely play there. And look, there's options as well, as we discussed last week. You've got Ben Doak, who you can draft in, who I thought was excellent, actually, against Bilbao. You've got Harvey Elliott, who can play in the front three if he does stick about. You've got Frimpong, who can play in the front three. So, look, maybe if you have 4 senior options, Ngumoha, who's a bit of a wild card and being eased in, plus you've got a plethora of kind of players that can come in and do a job here and there. Maybe that is enough options, but yeah, listen, I think Ngumoha is definitely now, that's got to be part of the plans. And it's funny, you say you saw him play for the academy quite a bit. I saw him play for the academy, maybe February, March time. I thought he was woeful. I thought he was absolutely awful. I remember coming away saying, that lad, he's a long way off the, pushing, because it was after he played against Accrington Stanley, and I remember thinking, like, he is a long way off pushing into the first team. And suddenly, a couple of months later, I'm going, right, eat my words, I suppose, so it shows how much I know. But I think I'm actually really excited to see him play, and he's such a unique, he's a really interesting dribbler, and he just, in the blink of an eye, just quick feet, moves the ball, and it's no wonder defenders can't deal with him. He's just so quick, and he's absolutely fearless. He doesn't seem to care who he's up against. Okay, it's a small sample size, but he didn't seem bothered. In the AC Milan game, was he up against Tomori on the right-hand side, and he didn't care. He was running around him and making chances, and so yeah, really excited for Ngumoha this season.
Yeah, and I think the sort of role as well, just to finish on him, if he is coming on for 15, 20 minutes, it's going to be against tired legs. And I think the last thing that an ageing Premier League right-back is going to want is to come up against Rio Ngumoha. But I wanted to mention Trey Nyoni as well, because I'm a big, big fan of him. I thought he was absolutely exceptional at centre-back. That isn't his position, but he seemed to fit in really nicely compared to, some of the other options that Liverpool have thrown in there. It's not a position that I've ever seen him play. I don't know whether he has played that before, but seemed very, very natural in that position. Obviously, then moved forward into midfield as well later in the game. But I just thought it was worth mentioning him as well, because there's been so much talk around Ngumoha, understandably so. But I think Trey Nyoni as well is one who maybe isn't going to get as many minutes. He's not, the backup option in midfield or anything like that. But any domestic cup games before the end of this calendar year, I'd expect Trey Nyoni to be getting an opportunity in there, because he's another one that has impressed me. What have you made of him this summer?
Yeah, agree entirely with what you said. I think his calmness on the ball really stands out. He's so composed in possession. I thought particularly at centre-back, he was really good for building the play. Did have one little mistake near the end of the first half, but other than that, really good. Like, playing out of position. He's, 18, playing out of position. I mean, God, if he makes one mistake in the game, I think we'll afford him that. So, but yeah, I mean, what's interesting is Liverpool have a lot of different midfield options, but a lot of very physical options. And I think that Alexis McAllister wouldn't, I'm not saying that he's not a physical player, but he's more of a technical, keeps the ball moving rather than the physicality. If you think of Gravenberch, Szoboszlai, for instance, I think Nyoni is maybe more towards McAllister's end of the spectrum in terms of his ability to just keep the ball ticking over. So perhaps there's a role there. Obviously, McAllister started this season with a couple of injury issues, kind of a bit of a hangover from last season. Look, I think Nyoni is going to struggle to find game time this season. I think he is going to. He's got so many midfielders in those positions. You think of Endo as well. I think of Harvey Elliott. It's going to be difficult for him to get lots of minutes, but I do think cup games is certainly an obvious one for him. And can he get 5-10 minutes at the end of a couple of Premier League matches? That would be really good for him. And I think that what is interesting is Liverpool had a couple of midfield options, James McConnell and Tyler Morton, who were in and around the first team. Obviously, it looks like Trey Nyoni has essentially pushed ahead of those two in the pecking order and maybe forced his way into Arne Slot's plans. So yeah, I as you said, really impressed with him. I think he started, I might be around 4 out of the 6 friendly games. I mean, you can only start a maximum of 5 anyway, so 4 out of 5. That's really good going. And yeah, I think he's got a very bright future, that's for sure.
Yeah, I've been really impressed by him in a couple of different positions. It's no bad thing as well to slot in at centre-back, particularly at the moment when Liverpool don't have a huge amount of centre-back. So let's talk about that next. Yeah. I mean, it was exaggerated, wasn't it, the point in that Virgil van Dijk was ill, Joe Gomez is injured, and that leaves only Ibrahim Konate. But, I mean, we've spoken about it countless times across the last few weeks. It still does look to be a priority for Liverpool for the rest of this summer. It'd be a massive risk, wouldn't it, to not do anything? I'm not 100% sold on Marc Guéhi, but obviously you'd rather him than not in terms of, Liverpool going into the new season with 3, one of which is Joe Gomez, who's already picked up an injury. I mean, that can't happen, can it?
No, I don't think so. I think you're spot on in your assessment there. I said last week that I think ideally Liverpool need 2 centre-backs. Now, they're not going to get 2, and I wouldn't really think that that's probably something they should look to do anyway, but they certainly need another one in. I think it's not the end of the world if Wataru Endo was to fill in there from time to time. I don't think Gravenberch should be playing at centre-back. He's too important in midfield. And yeah, I mean, like, we know Liverpool are interested in the centre-back. They do want to bring a centre-back in. I think ideally they would have looked this summer at someone in around the kind of the 18, 21-year-old, in those kind of that age range. I've seen a number of names linked this summer, and I think that Guéhi just offers a unique opportunity to bring in a talented player at a certain level for a relatively cheap price, because he's obviously his contract's up. An England international, you can't turn your nose up at the possibility of bringing him in, but at the same time, it's obviously not a simple deal to conclude. Otherwise, I think Liverpool would have got this one sorted a few weeks ago. So, yeah, but they need to add another centre-back, that's for sure. And it was slightly comical to think that across the 2 games on Monday night, let's say the 3 starting centre-backs, only one of them was across the 4 starting centre-backs, 3 of them weren't natural centre-backs, only one was. And a couple of different players had to go there as well. And yeah, they need to get that sorted, that's for sure.
Yeah, I mentioned there I'm not sold on Marc Guéhi. I should probably expand on that, really. What I mean by that is that there's a couple of things, really. One is, you mentioned the price. There might be an opportunity to go in and get him, because obviously he's in the last 12 months of his contract. But, I mean, if you pay him more than £30 million, I'd say that's an overpayment with a year left on his contract. I think Liverpool might be in a position where at the end of the window, they might just have to do it and pay more if Crystal Palace demand more. But I think, to go above that would be quite a lot for somebody of that level and that kind of experience. Obviously very high in both of those aspects, but with a year left on his contract, Crystal Palace not in the best of bargaining positions. And the other big question for me really is, in a World Cup year, how easy is it going to be to convince Marc Guéhi that he's going to play ahead of Ibrahim Konate? especially when Konate last season under Arne Slot, even with 2 games a week, there wasn't that many games that he had to sit out or had to be rotated. It was pretty solid. Now we expect more rotation moving forwards from Arne Slot, but I don't necessarily think that will be at centre-back. I think he possibly might have meant that more in midfield, or maybe keeping Mohamed Salah fresher for longer might have to happen, things like that. I think at centre-back, maybe that's the place where you go for stability. So those are the 2 question marks, really. But I suppose the obvious sort of rebuttal to that is, well, if it's not him, then, who else do you go for? There might not be a great deal of choice out there for Liverpool. So that's kind of where I'm at with that, really. I mean, before we move on, is there anything else to say at centre-back, or have we kind of covered that enough times on this podcast?
No, I mean, I don't disagree with anything you've said, particularly the World Cup point. If I was Gay, I'd be very wary, if I'm honest, of going to Liverpool, because he needs to be playing regularly to get, not just in the England squad, but hopefully from his perspective, to try and nail down a starting spot. I think the only interesting thing is, a lot of clubs do have a number of centre-backs. I mean, Arsenal are the obvious one. They have 4 or 5, don't they? I know a number of them do play a fullback, but and even, I mean, Chelsea have 1 million players anyway, but Chelsea, Man United, they're kind of, if you get down to their 3rd centre back, they're still at a pretty decent level. So look, maybe there is a world where he can come in and maybe Van Dijk is rotated a little bit more this year, given he's 34, maybe Konate as well, aware of his injuries and everything. But yeah, I can certainly see your stance on it. Yeah, but they need to get a centre-back. That's the long and short of it. Whatever happens before the end of the window, there needs to be another centre-back option in at Liverpool.
Yeah, I'm sure there'll be developments on that front over the next few weeks, and we'll obviously keep you up to date on Liverpool.com. But let's move into the attack again then. Florian Wirtz and Hugo Ekitike, the first time that they have played at Anfield, at least for Liverpool. Obviously, Florian Wirtz was there last season with Bayer Leverkusen, but let's go for Wirtz first. He is the one who I think is most exciting in terms of the levels that he could reach. One of the very best players in the world. And I think across the course of this preseason, it's been fair to say he's slotted in pretty seamlessly. Some of his passing and some of his touches. I mean, it's just amazing to watch, isn't it?
Yeah, I wrote last night after the game, he just oozes class. Everything he does, it's so kind of almost balletic a little bit in just the way he kind of flits around. Really graceful player. I think the Premier League are going to love him. I think that Liverpool potentially signs an absolute gem, really. A player who could be one of the best players in the Premier League for a long time. I mean, that's a big thing to say before he's even kicked the ball in the division, but I just feel like there's so much excitement around his signing, the price that Liverpool have paid. He stopped for us last night in the mix zone, didn't he? And he certainly doesn't seem fazed by that price. He seems very confident lad. What is he, 22 as well, and he's already achieved so much in the game. So he is going to have a brilliant role to play. And I thought it was interesting last night, and I suppose this is an obvious thing to say in many ways, but Arne Slot referenced the fact that he has essentially come in to fill the void creativity-wise that is being made by Trent Alexander-Arnold's departure. I mean, that's an obvious thing, I suppose, but just even to hear Slot kind of rubber stamp it and confirm, it's quite interesting. So he is going to be creator-in-chief, and I think a lot is going to go through him next season. And I'm actually really, like Ngumoha, really interested to see how he gets on. I'm really looking forward to seeing him play this season.
Yeah, I mean, aside from the touches and the passes and the things that we know we were going to get with Florian Wirtz, I think it was interesting to see a few of those partnerships start to develop as well. We'll talk about Hugo Ekitike in a moment, but I think Mohamed Salah is going to love playing alongside Florian Wirtz. Obviously, Cody Gakpo gets himself a couple of goals. It just feels like a real attacking unit, which, considering half of those 4 players have only just arrived, I mean, Hugo Ekitike has been there a matter of a couple of weeks. It feels quite well meshed together, I think, at the moment. Each of those players has got a defined role. They're playing in a position which really suits them and gets the best out of their individual qualities. But it looked to me like there was a few patterns and a few sort of different ways of playing and attacking, whether that's counter-attacking, whether that's trying to break down a low block. It just felt like it was quite comfortable and easy for them to play with each other so far, which at this stage of the summer, I think is really promising as well.
Yeah, totally agree. Totally agree. I thought that Salah and Wirtz, and I would have said this before Monday night's game, they already seem to have a little connection, don't they? They almost seem to, when they get on the ball, look up, they're looking for each other, which I think is really obvious at this stage. And yeah, it was really fluid, that front four. I think, well, Isak could change that, but I think that front three behind the striker will be the main three this season. It's just the striker position there we're still a bit unsure about. But and I thought Ekitike, I mean, we're going to come to him in a second, but what I thought was really interesting was the first goal when he pulled out wide onto kind of a centre back, in between the gap between the centre back and full back, and they played that ball in behind. I don't think Liverpool, that would have been a move we'd have seen too much last season. I mean, I know Diaz was capable of pulling into that sort of pocket as well a little bit, but that ball in behind is going to be a new kind of option for Liverpool to utilise, I think, this season, if the striker is either Isak or Ekitike, and that's going to be a really interesting aspect of their game, I think, moving forward.
Yeah, I mean, we only saw 57 minutes of Hugo Ekitike, so I don't want to go too over the top in terms of that, but it did look like a player who almost Liverpool maybe thought they were getting with Darwin Núñez, in that he can go into those pockets, he can time the runs properly, he can be intelligent in terms of making that movement. The movement I thought was really impressive, but then the hold-up play and the link-up play, he just looked like a player who was very intelligent, very in tune with the players around him, and obviously, you know, he's played in a Frankfurt team that has got quality. He played with Omar Marmoush, obviously joined Manchester City in the winter transfer window. They had a really good connection. But obviously, the goal that you mentioned where he beats his man and then sets up Mohamed Salah, there was a few other chances as well that came because he held the ball up and passed it to one of his teammates around him. I mean, as debuts go, I think that was probably as good as he could have expected at this point in his Liverpool career. He just looked like he, again, was really comfortable within that role and really enjoyed himself, which I think is, again, a good thing. When you come in for big money, it's not necessarily easy to do that, I don't think.
Yeah, agreed. And I mean, he's obviously the unknown, I suppose, going into the season. I think we know what we're going to get from Wirtz. I think he's proven it at numerous levels. Kirkes has proven in the Premier League. Frimpong has also proven at numerous levels. Dutch international, German title winner. Ekitike is the only one that you look at, certainly of the big signings, let's say, and say that is a bit of a risk. Certainly for the price they paid for him. I know you and I have discussed that a lot this summer. But first impressions were really good. As you mentioned, I thought his touch was really nice. I know it's the obvious stereotype of good touch for a big man, but it actually is kind of basically what I thought of him when I saw it. And he's very he is rapid. He's really quick as well. Which maybe I didn't quite realize how quick he was. There was one point he got the ball into him, he knocked it off, and he turned and he spun. It wasn't for the goal, but I just thought that was really good. It was proper centre forward play. Really good technically, hold up play as well. And there was one point as well where he was running and he kind of just pushed his arm back and quite easily swatted a defender off him, which I thought was quite interesting as well. So he's the one that I'm not saying I don't think he's going to be a success, far from it, but he's the question mark, I think, going into the season. And I think even more so given Isak and the situation, and particularly if he has to end up playing out wide a little bit more, which I don't think he'll want to do really. But I think that's the big question mark just hanging over Liverpool full stop at the moment, isn't it? Isak and everything. So yeah, one we'll have to keep an eye on over the next couple of weeks for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I've not seen enough of him to say whether he could or couldn't play off that left-hand side. Obviously, there's Cody Gakpo there as well. Liverpool are going to need a number of different options, and Rio Ngumoha as well. You wouldn't want to get in the way of him getting minutes. So, yeah, it will be interesting to see how everyone fits in. But, I mean, you do need two number 9s. You can't just go in with one and leave it at that. If Darwin Núñez is to move on, they're going to need, obviously, somebody else to come in and take that place in the squad. So, yeah, it's going to be interesting, I think, in terms of the attack. But just to finish, I wanted to touch on Dominik Szoboszlai as well, who I thought was excellent. Obviously changed his role slightly because of Florian Wirtz coming in. I think if you asked him, he'd probably say he prefers to be a little bit deeper and a little bit more involved in that side of things. But I know you mentioned Arne Slot talking about Florian Wirtz as a way of sort of taking over from Trent Alexander-Arnold in terms of that creativity. But I thought we saw a little bit of Dominik Szoboszlai doing that as well. He's got a brilliant range of passing. He was dropping into the defence and really starting moves. But then physically he's able to go box to box, literally start a move and finish it as well. I wonder if we might see a little bit more of that. Now, Alexis McAllister has got to fit into that. Ryan Gravenberch has got to fit into that. You can't play all of them all at the same time. But I think he is another big winner, I think, of pre-season, Dominik Szoboszlai, because there was, for a lot of people, a bit of a question mark over Florian Wirtz has come in. Where does he fit in? For me, I think he's answered that question now.
Yeah, and I think when him and Gravenberch play together, as they did on Monday, the dribbling potential for the two of them and the ability to drive with the ball from deep is brilliant. I do think that sometimes one of them should maybe check over their shoulder a little bit and just drop 5 yards, but that's maybe a slightly pessimistic view of it. But I do think their running power is going to be a real aspect as well of bringing the ball from deep. When you've got two of them together, that's going to be a change, I think, this season for Liverpool. I think the question is, look, we presume Wirtz is going to start in number 10, and that means that 2 of the 3 of Gravenberch, Szoboszlai and McAllister will play in midfield this season. That means that one of them's going to drop out. I think we probably presume Gravenberch is going to start, so it's going to be one of McAllister and Szoboszlai. And look, I think that this is, again, a point we've come back to several times. I think there will be more rotation this season. I think players will be given the opportunity to rest a little bit more this season. But that's a really interesting aspect, because McAllister and Szoboszlai were absolutely integral to last season and the way Liverpool played. I suspect they'll have huge roles to play this season as well. But I do think that both of them will probably have a little bit more time on the bench this season.
Yeah, and that's no bad thing either. I think probably there's a decent chance that Alexis McAllister's injury possibly wasn't helped by the fact that he played a lot of football. If you can kind of spread those minutes across the course of the season, then I think that works really nicely for all of them and could have an ultimate benefit. Not to end on a negative note by any stretch, but I did want to talk about maybe a few of those players who might feel that they've lost out a little bit. Obviously, Federico Chiesa, we've not seen a huge amount. Some talk of an injury with him, but the one thing we know for sure is he wasn't on the pre-season tour. He's probably the obvious one that I would look at in terms of not making the most of this summer. But who else is there that you think maybe will look back and think they might have wanted it to go a little bit differently?
Sorry, I missed the name you said there. Just pause for a split second. Who was it?
Federico Chiesa.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, he's going to have a difficult. It was always going to be a difficult summer for him anyway. I do think, obviously, we came into the season thinking, or to the summer thinking, was there a half chance he could ingratiate himself back in the Slot's plans? Maybe. I mean, there was talk at one point, could he be seen as a kind of a centre forward option? I just think that it's proved now that he's not going to have a part to play this season, and he certainly doesn't have any shortage of interest, certainly in Italy. So I just can't see any way that he is part of Liverpool's plans going into the season. He's obviously had a difficult pre-season. I think Joe Gomez has had a difficult pre-season as well, for the obvious reason, not of his performances or anything, but once again, he's picked up an injury, and you know, I think everyone thinks the same about Joe Gomez, that when he plays, he's very reliable, but he just cannot be relied on to play regularly. And in a similar sense, I think Conor Bradley might feel a little bit like that he's played right back. He seems to have been the first choice throughout the summer. Suddenly, the final preseason game, he picks up an injury. Frimpong gets in. Frimpong played well last night. Didn't think he was amazing, but thought he played well. I suspect he'll start the Community Shield. Maybe I'll start against Bournemouth in kind of 10 days' time, or whatever it is. And suddenly, he's starting the season as first choice right back. So, you know, I mean, I'm 2 + 2 = 5 there a little bit, but so he's another one who maybe might feel a bit disappointed just how pre-season has ended. And the other one, and I feel like I'm always picking on him a little bit, which is a bit harsh, but I didn't think Harvey Elliott did a huge amount again over the games he played to convince that he's ready to have a big role on the back of obviously his fantastic performances in the Euros. Yeah, just thought maybe he was going to come back a bit refreshed, but yeah, he's another one I don't think we will see at Liverpool this season. I think him, Núñez, and Chiesa will move on. I'm starting to have doubts about Doak now. Personally, I think he could have a good role to play, similar to Ngumoha coming off the bench, but that's a separate point. But yeah, so there's a handful there that maybe haven't had a brilliant preseason. But I don't think in general anyone has. There's no one. When we started talking about this, I thought, has anyone played badly this summer? And no one jumped out. I don't think anyone's played badly as such, but I do think there's a few that maybe just haven't quite as impressed as others, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, I'd agree with that. I think Harvey Elliott is a good point. I think he he's been all right, but he's not really grabbed any game and really stood out, which I think for somebody in his position to be that low down in the pecking order, he probably had to have an exceptional summer to change Arne Slot's mind on that. So, I mean, if that was the last game that he plays at Anfield, obviously nice moment for him to score. It is quite possible that might be the case, but I'm sure we'll find out more on him, on Darwin Núñez and various others across the next few weeks. Even in the case of Darwin Núñez, it sounds like there's a fair bit of interest in him. Suspect there might need to be a bit of movement in terms of Isak or somebody coming in before that happens. But yeah, plenty of moving parts across the course of this summer as ever. But I think we'll leave it there for this week. Thanks to Michael for joining me, for you guys at home as well as ever for tuning in to watch and to listen. And we'll be back next week with the next Liverpool.com podcast.